Arthur in Richboro, Pennsylvania writes to me, "Hey Paul, back in the day, upon visiting an audio dealership, I would come away with a stack of printed literature on the products that I was interested in, often comparing specifications across competing products. I eventually came to realize, to my perception, that those numbers did not translate into a commensurate level of musical enjoyment." No kidding. Today, when I read about components, I'm more inclined to hang on the subjective descriptions of the reviewer rather than the cold, hard measurements. I realize that as a manufacturer, you are expected, if not required, to provide measurements. But do you find that those measurements correlate to any sonic expectation, or is it the performance of a given component more a function of some immeasurable interplay of design, parts, selection, or some form of audio alchemy? Yeah, absolutely, the latter, for sure. I've said this 100 times. Two identically measuring amplifiers will not sound the same. Even from the same design, if you take two of these and you listen critically, they're not going to sound identical. They'll sound close, but not identical. There's no way that a complex grouping of parts together will make the same sonic signature as another, even identical grouping of parts. It's just, it doesn't happen like that. And in particular, different technologies from different groups, even though each one has the same silly measurements that people rely upon, THD, intermodulation, distortion, slew rate, all this kind of stuff, gives you an indication of how it generally is going to sound, but certainly not how it's going to sound. In fact, the only measurements I have ever seen that show differences clearly is a difference. If you take two two pieces of equipment and you take their output, put them into a difference scope, you will see a difference signal. That signal is the difference that we hear, but we don't necessarily measure, right? Because we don't have the measurements. We don't know what to measure in order to tell the differences in sonic qualities. We just don't have it. I'd love to have it. It'd be great to have a meter that tells me this one's going to sound great and that one's going to suck. That would be lovely. Wouldn't that be great for all of us? And then we could just say, well, you know, if you want to spend this money, you get that performance, and if you want to spend that, you get that performance. Very simple, very nice. It doesn't exist. And anybody tells you that it does is FOS. And if you don't know what that means, go look it up. So we're trying. We always keep measuring, trying to figure out, oh, every time I see this, it correlates to that. So that's a goal. It is the holy grail that we'd love to get to, but we're not there. And one more note. Even though we can take two pieces of equipment, do the difference test, see a difference, like on the front of a power plant, I've talked about this before, there's a distortion analyzer and a scope. And you can see the difference between the incoming AC and the outgoing AC. And you see this difference, and it's stuff. What do you do with that? All you've identified is that there is a difference. You haven't identified what that difference is, whether it's better, worse, or indifferent. So we're not there yet, and maybe someday we will. Today, sorry, not happening. All right? Great question. Thank you.